Hi, everyone. I'm François Rivard. I'm CEO and founder of Astrakhan Consulting. Astrakhan is a consulting firm specialized in middleware integration, everything about API management, event-driven architecture, iPaaS. So that's what we're going to talk about today, with a main focus on event-driven architecture. And we're going to explain why and how event-driven architecture is actually the building block, the main foundations of middleware unification. And this is our main topics for today, with some examples and a little bit of theory, but I'm sure that they all go well together. Astrakhan is a consulting firm specialized in governing data innovation, which basically means that we cover every field about data, with data architecture, enterprise architecture, unified integration, data in motion between applications, all kind of integration and a lot of event-driven architecture, and also artificial intelligence, be it predictive analytics, agents, or LLM mastery. We have a very good set of partners. Solace is one of them. We have a very good collaboration with Solace and very meaningful implementations that we can use to introduce this topic today of unified integration. And our clients are actually in every industry, every size, I would say, but as you can see, lots of large corporations which actually need to tackle this topic of unified integration in a very neat and thoughtful way. And that's going to be the demonstration of these needs that allow to expand integration and unify it over a very large range of big corporations. I'd like to introduce this topic today, saying that EDA is actually missing link for all blocks of integrations in the major information systems, and has been introduced through a very specific set of use cases, one of them being connecting OT and IT. Is a little bit the starting point of that. And from that starting point, actually, integration, event-driven architecture has expanded the capability to integrate in real time in a very, very organized way that we're going to introduce today. So from that starting point, you can actually start to integrate business applications in an asynchronous mode. You can also have a very developed policy of data management, sharing and democratizing data, and mostly decide if you want to adopt a centralized model, a decentralized model in the way you manage your data and your integration using these data, and balance this centralized, decentralized mode depending on the level of maturity in your whole organization, in your whole departments, or in your branches. So that's a very powerful tool. That's an enabler for this capability to manage different kind of data policy and enable a data mesh and a data product platform. And it has been said also, it's maybe a little bit more common that event-driven architecture is a very good way to enable a service mesh, to enable microservices communication in a microservices architecture. But as you know, those microservices architecture are usually a piece of the puzzle. Around those pieces of the puzzle, around this microservices platform, you will see a lot of business applications that you need to integrate in real time, and that's where EDA can come into play. So let's go back to our starting point, how to integrate OT and IT, the industrial part of an information system and the pure business part of this information system. And it happens that one of the main use cases that Solace has been implementing over the years now is this one, Industry 4.0 on one hand, business applications on the other hand, event brokers connected to each other, exchanging data, exchanging messages between the different layers of this information system seamlessly, and between all kinds of applications. In this slide, we've tried to figure which actually applications were producing events. So we picked the red color, and which applications are consuming events, which are applications in the green color. But in the world of application integration in the IT system, it's likely that most of the system will produce and consume data at the same time. So that differentiates a little bit the industrial network when you can actually see that you have very clearly identified producers of information and clearly identified consumers. In the enterprise network, it's not that clear. And it's likely that producers and consumers will actually be the same applications. And this, not for the same data most of the time, but this means that we need to build a system in which all applications are capable to consume and produce events and data. So once those brokers are connected, once you can actually unify, the first level of unification of integration is between those different kind of networks, then you can expand that network and actually cover all kind of business applications with adapters, with connectors. And you can see on this diagram specifically that we have displayed three event brokers. One is the front office one is the back office one, and between those two, we have what we call the core broker. And that's the level where actually integration gets unified. You can see that the applications which are connected to this core broker are not business applications. They are kind of transverse applications. You can see an API manager, you can see an ESB and some legacy applications connected directly to this ESB, Enterprise Service Bus, which is, let's say, the previous generation of integration building blocks, mostly on-premise, specifically on-premise. You can see an orchestrator, which can be an iPaaS, actually, in today's conventions. And this core broker, which actually activates a mesh of event broker between the back office and the front office. This core broker actually plays the role of a unified integration platform where you can find all the building blocks of your integration. We will discuss a little bit later why we need to have many, let's say, multiple integration building blocks, and why it may not be sufficient to have an EDA or just an iPaaS or just an API manager. They don't compete with each other. They actually complement each other and they communicate with each other. We know that when we want to activate asynchronous APIs, an event broker can be a very good way actually to get this implementation and the right pattern of architecture. And it goes well with our actually integration building blocks. So we'll get through that in a minute. But what we can say here actually is that it's not only building blocks of integration in themselves, it's also the governance of those building blocks. Unifying the middleware means that you have to deal with asynchronous and synchronous integration capabilities. You need to deal with different kind of interfaces. We talk about iPaaS, for instance. We have end-to-end integration where data are transformed in the middle. That's what we, let's say, call interface. When we talk about APIs, it's different kind of components. When we talk about events, it's also a different kind of components. They all actually materialize the fact that you transfer data in real time, that it's data in motion between endpoints, but those data are maybe of different nature and different format as well. And what actually brings them together in that pattern is that they are constantly in motion, and you need to trace how these data are exchanged. It's a matter of data policy, data security. It's called lineage. You also need to understand how they are transformed. And that's what those complementary components bring to this core broker mesh, to this integration platform. You can see there, we have an event portal to manage, to govern the integration assets. And we'll give you an example in a few minutes. We have a monitoring console, which is more business view of how data are transferred in real time between applications. We've got the distributed tracing, which is a little bit more technical view for observability with OpenTelemetry, for instance. And all these blocks, they don't have, let's say, integration capabilities in themselves, but they provide you the way to give a full visibility to your unified integration platform around this EDA broker. And they give you the full visibility to make sure that those boxes that collaborate together, the APIM, the event broker, the iPaaS, they give you an end-to-end understanding of how to build new interfaces and how to monitor them when they go into production. The big picture is kind of here. You can see that we have federated the different views we've presented so far. On the left-hand side, the OT network. On the right-hand side, all interactions, mostly synchronous, coming from the customers, coming from the partners, if we talk about B2B interactions. And they mostly interact with an API gateway. And then they refer to the enterprise broker, which makes sure that the data are distributed at the right system at the right time, and that every system that needs to consume data can actually get the data in the right moment. And what's new today, and we'll also get that a little bit later in the presentation, it's this notion of integrating AI agents in a context mesh. AI agents are artificial intelligence components that have different behavior depending on the context that they receive. And getting events in real time allow these agents actually to have a smart behavior depending on what happens on the ground. So it creates more real-time interaction, RAG capabilities to your ecosystem of AI agents and AI capabilities. And this can be activated through a real-time enterprise broker. So that, once again, this view shows quite well how to unify everything. If we want to sum it up in one slide, that's basically here. You can understand that each component, event brokers, API managers, iPaaS platforms, they have their own sets of features and they complement with each other. API management is a lot about, as we said, synchronous connection with the outside world and monetization of some integration assets. iPaaS is a lot about transformation and orchestration, which is very specific to iPaaS. And event brokers is the capability actually to enable this nervous system for the company in real time. And all these capabilities brought together is what is usually called event-based integration and a hybrid integration platform, HIP. Hybrid because it needs to glue together components that may have not been initially designed to work together, but they can actually fit well together thanks to event-driven architecture. So that's the application of EDA principles to the field of integration itself. And this brings this kind of capabilities. This is coming from a luxury group with a worldwide presence. And actually, they have implemented exactly what we described with a messaging backbone, starting in the manufacturing processes and then expanded to business applications and eventually to the clients outside of the company, because some boutiques are now online and they can digitalize their client experience with a fully unified platform that can give more, let's say, consistency to processes, end-to-end processes, which start with the customer and ends at the supply chain level or at the manufacturing level even. A little bit of principles of EDA design to also understand how those components, they fit together and how you can build your integration patterns in order to take the most of all these technologies. The first one is actually to make sure that everybody here has a clear conscience that an event broker does not transform data. And integration has been said to be a lot about transformation. And actually, in the world of event-driven architecture, we try not to integrate, to transform, at the core. We transform at the edge. And that's what you see here. All these applications, they get adapters, which make sure that the data coming from an application can be transformed into a common data format for the whole company, which will circulate over the bus and which will be received by the consumers of these messages, this data, later on in the process. Using common formats allows you easily to connect new applications to the event broker. Any new application which would need to consume client customer data coming from Salesforce would just have to comply with this canonical command format and will be integrated to the integration network very, very easily. And that happens, this transformation happens at the adapter level, which Solisys implements under the name of micro integration, if I'm correct. And then we make sure that actually we design a command format, which is very good in terms of data governance, which is very good in terms of enterprise architecture, that really explains that integration can be unified if it's architected previously to the implementation of such components and building blocks. And you don't have only to design a very clean taxonomy of topics for your EDA, you also need to make sure that you implement your client, your common data format in that case. And then you can actually connect all kinds of applications, and especially this API manager, if you need to activate, for instance, asynchronous APIs or any kind of other application, can actually get an access to this customer data if they are allowed to consume this canonical format and eventually transform this canonical format into the local native format of each application, which gives you a lot of flexibility in the way you design also your APIs that way. When do you need an iPaaS? You need an iPaaS actually when you need to transform the data because the applications, some of the applications are not able actually to transform the data at the adapter level. So they just send on the bus the data in their native format. And if we want to make sure that the data can be received by the consuming application, then we need an iPaaS to take over at one point and to transform the data from the source format to the target format. You may also need an iPaaS to orchestrate complex interactions between some applications, kind of workflow also in a way. And that's how you will actually get the most of all these technologies together. Some applications, some real-life applications of such patterns of architecture. Typically, we mentioned data governance, real-time data with EDA, building a data mesh, and using an event broker actually to make sure that you can actually design common data at the domain level. So that's also a matter of domain-driven design. Make sure that the finance data here, the client services, the sales and marketing departments, they get a full ownership. They keep a full ownership of their own data. And when they decide to publish data on the bus, those data are actually published in a format that has been designed for the whole corporation with the responsibility of the teams who are actually in charge of those data. That's actually what allows you to get more balance between centralized model of integration, centralized model of architecture as well, give more autonomy, more responsibility to the domains, which is usually what you want to achieve when you build a data mesh. And you can also see on that diagram that you might have a central responsibility for the data product platform, which actually consolidates all the data, all the messages coming from the different departments, the different domains of the company. It can be done on demand, recreating data on the fly, kind of a data virtualization. Or you can also think about storing those fragments of data or those sets of data at the core broker mesh level in a data lake, for instance. And in that case, when you consume those views over the data, you can use event-driven architecture to update, to send updates in real time. If something has changed in the definition of the data, once you consume them, you can actually subscribe to update and get some data feeds in real time to make sure that you always have fresh data and up-to-date data. This kind of architecture, we have built some of them. This is a fully unified integration platform that has been designed by our teams in APAC and China. And you can see here that it combines all the capabilities of an integration platform, including APIs, iPaaS interfaces, event-driven architecture. And also, you can also see that it deals with the transactional integration and the analytics integration. The data-driven integration is actually an ETL, which is more used to feed data lakes and analytics application. Actually, we can mutualize when the data flow into that system. We can mutualize those data for different use cases, for different purposes. And you can also see on the left-hand side an enterprise architecture repository, which is our governance feature that gives a full visibility to this construction and make sure that you can have this full visibility in the design time and also at the runtime. Another use case is data sovereignty. You can use an event-driven architecture to make sure that the data they flow in the right boundaries and that you are compliant with regulation frameworks such as a PIPL, for instance, in Asia, or a GDPR in Europe. And then once the data they flow at the right place, you can use the capabilities of integration to transform them in the right format locally. Last but not least, what we introduced a little bit earlier in this presentation, the context mesh, which is the connection of AI components such as agents or LLM engines or machine learning algorithms to an event broker with enterprise applications to bring a full integration capability and enables real-time AI using the same set of architecture. So that's what we'd like to underline in. It's not just the point to talk about AI because it's a trendy topic. It's also a way to make sure that your AI is not disconnected from the rest of your information system and can also benefit of integration in real time so that your agents or all your AI capabilities are actually able to be real time and respond in the pace of the business. To maybe wrap it up, once again, different components and the need to govern them. So generally you need to build a last integration component, which we call the Unified Governance Portal, which gives you a full view over all your integration assets. They can be data products, API catalogs, API products, events, schema of events. It does not rewrite the native capabilities of a platform like Solace PubSub, which has a governance portal. This is actually Solace's governance portal integrated into another console that also gives you full access to your APIs, signatures, and all your data products. So it's just a skin which gives you the flavor that it's one single application, but actually this is a governance portal from Solace. This is an API product portal from Gravity, and they all look the same, and that's what we have achieved to make sure that at the design time you can drive your middleware as a single component. And of course, it has impact on some parts of your operating model and the way you deliver projects. Each business project has an integration part to it. Gartner said that it can be almost 50% of each project. So when it gets that high, you want to make sure that you can reuse existing integration components. And that's what the Unified Governance Portal is helpful for. You can actually make sure that you can reuse some of your integration assets and accelerate the time to market of these specific project, which depends on 3 different kind of integration components: data and usual iPaaS interfaces, APIs, of course, the APIs you expose, but also the APIs you consume, and same thing for the events that you produce and the events that you need in order to get real-time responses and respond to events. This means that such kind of platforms need a little bit of maturity in the use of integration and the use of event-driven architecture. So we've built this maturity level model to make sure that you can actually implement these platforms all along the way. Usually API starts in one point, EDA, event brokers, they start in another point of a corporation, let alone the iPaaS. And at one point, they need to get federated with each other in order to deliver a full integration platform capability. And that's when you understand that architecture is the central piece of that you need data signature, common data format, and this is how you gain maturity in the deployment of all these components. This is it for this presentation. I think we have covered all the topics of unified integration, starting with architecture patterns, starting with the building blocks of these technologies, before introducing what you need to change or what you need to adapt to in your organization at your own governance level to deliver this capability in a collaborative way with all the domains and all the users of your company.